Hello, this is a video about the GED Science. In one of the sections, they're going to be asking you about science investigations, how you set up experiments. And I thought the GED.com did a good job of summarizing that. In this sheet here, in the science investigations, you'll be asked to how to design a scientific experiment, identify and explain independent-dependent variables, identify a hypothesis, possible errors in investigations, and strengths and weaknesses. And they give some good examples here. I would suggest you read through these. Down at the bottom here, there's some examples, and there's a question down here. Let me get to that. Where is that question? There we go. One thing you do when you do these problems on a test is the first thing, we have all this reading here, but I think it's important to read the question they're going to ask you first. And so here's all this reading. But then the question is, what are the independent and dependent variables in the investigation? So it's good to read the question first so we know what we're looking for. Otherwise, we're going to end up reading this twice or three times. The independent variable is the variable in the experiment that the scientist is changing, that they have control over. And the dependent variable is what gets changed because of the independent variable. The dependent variable is dependent on the independent variable. And let's run through this question. Dissolved carbon dioxide gas creates carbonic acid in ocean water. Rising ocean acidity levels may harm marine life. For example, high acid levels may cause hearing loss in fish. Scientists conducted an investigation to study the effect of increased acidity on fish hearing. So, a group of fertilized fish eggs from the same parents were divided into 4 different aquariums, which is important in experiments that we have different groups. You got to have more than one group. So they're going to have 4 different aquariums to compare, each with the different pressure of CO2. One tank contained the normal atmospheric conditions of 390 microatmospheres of carbon dioxide. The other tanks contain 600, 700, 900 of the same thing. So they're going to keep increasing the carbon dioxide in each of the tanks and see if it affects the fish. The same number of eggs was placed into each aquarium. That's important. And probably the same kind of fish eggs is important. The eggs hatched and the fish lived in these aquariums until testing. You also have to have the same temperature of water, same everything. The only thing that's different is the amount of carbon dioxide in each tank. Okay, let's see if we get to the good stuff here. To prepare for the experiment, one fish was placed in an aquarium containing the same CO2 pressure in which it was raised. By the way, we can already know the independent variable. The independent variable is going to be the one the scientists are controlling, and it looks like they're going to be changing the CO2 gas in each tank. So that is the independent variable. That is the thing that is being controlled by the scientists. Independent is controlled by the scientists, so they're changing the CO2 gas. Let's keep reading. In which it was raised. The position of the fish was recorded every 5 seconds for 2 minutes. Then sounds from the predatory fish were played from an underwater speaker at one end of the aquarium at a volume that was only audible to the fish when swimming near the speaker. Ooh, so they're going to be playing a fish that's going to eat them. And that's kind of mean, but I imagine they're saying that if the predatory fish, if they can hear it, then they're going to swim away from that speaker because they'll be afraid. The fish's position was again recorded every 5 seconds for 2 minutes. Trials were repeated with the fish from each tank. Well, I already know what the dependent variable is going to be. Where they are in the tank is going to be dependent on the amount of CO2 in the tank, because the more CO2 in the tank, the more it affects their hearing, and they won't be able to hear as well. And so when they're near the speaker and they're in a 900 CO2 tank, they will not even hear it and they will just sit by the speaker. But at normal conditions, like 390, when they're by the speaker, they'll be able to hear the predatory fish by the speaker, and then they'll just zip to the other side of the tank. So I'm going to say that the independent variable is the CO2, and the dependent variable is position in the tank. And I could finish reading this. I don't really have to, just for fun of it. The study showed that the fish in the raised CO2 did not avoid the sounds of the predatory fish. So the ones in the higher ones just stayed by the speaker. And that's pretty much what it says at the bottom here. Let's see what the question says. And what are the independent dependent variables? The independent variable is the CO2 because that is what the scientist is controlling. And the position of the fish is dependent on the CO2. So that's a dependent variable, is the position of the fish in the tank where they are. And these other ones don't make sense with the eggs. The eggs were all the same. So, and then the temperature of the water would have to be the same too in all the tanks. So anyways, the only two things they were testing were the CO2 in the tank and the position of the fish. Those were the variables that change. Look for the things that are changing in the experiment to know what the variables are. The eggs and the temperature were not changing, so they were not variables. All right, well, good luck in your studies, and keep coming back to the GED.com website for more, and use your Aztec in your packets and everything else. Let me know if you have any questions ever. I'm out. Oh, I'm not out till I find the right button to push.